students, let's discuss on the adaptive features now, or adaptive mechanism that these divers they possess so that they can live in the limited amount of oxygen, specifically in a deep water. So the first point here, it is said that they use oxygen more efficiently. That is, they fill their lungs and exchange 90% of the air in each breath. So tunasema kwamba while they are in outside the environment, before now they enter into a deep water, these organisms they have ability of exchanging oxygen very effectively. About now you can see about 90%. So while now they inhale now oxygen gas, that amount of oxygen they are going to store it directly within their blood and their muscles. Here we have said that they use oxygen more efficiently. That is, they fill their lungs and the exchange of 90% of their air in each breath. So while they are taking in oxygen, they take a lot amount of oxygen or high concentration of oxygen. So that oxygen which now they inhale, it will going direct to be stored for the future use now while they are in the deep water. So this one, it is the first adaptation now help this organism, specifically human being, to survive in such area whereby there is limited amount of oxygen. And thus, before dives is taken, they take a deep breath to accumulate oxygen in their lungs. So this is what I have explained. Kwa maana kwamba hawa living organism, that is the human, wana uwezo mkubwa sana wa kuchukua hewa ya oxygen kwa wingi sana wakiwa kwenye outside environment ambao wamebe exposed kwenye hii atmosphere. Sasa ile amount of oxygen ina accumulate kwa wingi sana ndani ya their lungs. Sasa pale ambapo sasa patapotokea hakuna uwepo wa ile oxygen, so ile inhaled oxygen ndiyo ambayo itakwenda kutumika kwa ajili ya exchange wakiwa kwenye deep water. And another point here, or another adaptive feature that this human being now they can have in order to survive in the deep water, or those divers, we can say that they have a high blood volume with plenty of hemoglobin and myoglobin. This allow long oxygen retention time. So pia our human being tunasema kwamba they have high volume with a high blood volume. And the volume of blood, despite of having high blood volume, but also they have also the myoglobin, which is the plenty amount of myoglobin together with the hemoglobin. We know that hemoglobin and myoglobin, they are the form which are used now to transport the oxygen throughout the body. So in the presence of a lot amount of this hemoglobin and myoglobin, even if there is a limited amount of oxygen within their body which is stored within their muscles or within their blood, it will be carried out and it will function all over their body. So now you can see this one is just adaptation, and due to this adaptation it allow now long oxygen retention time, kwa sababu hizi myoglobin tunasema ni form ya hemoglobin, na hii myoglobin inakuwa na high affinity to oxygen even if there is a limited amount of oxygen. So this myoglobin will tend to carry such limited amount of oxygen so that to supply all over the body for the process, for instance, the respiration, which now tend to provide energy within the living body for those divers. So now you can see this is just a high blood volume and with a plenty of hemoglobin and the myoglobin. So by having that mechanism or adaptive feature, help them to store the oxygen for a long time. That is oxygen retention for a long time. We have another feature or another adaptive feature which now help these divers to survive in a deep water. That is that they have high tolerance to lactic acid and carbon dioxide. That is, their muscles can work anaerobically while holding their breath. So our peer organism or living organism, specifically human being, we have seen that they have high tolerance to lactic acid. You know that the lactic acid, it's a result of its final product is carbon dioxide, and the accumulation of carbon dioxide within the living body, it is very harmful. So what does their body do? Now tunasema kwamba their muscles can work anaerobically while holding their breath. So since their muscles, they can work anaerobically, it will tend now to produce more of this lactic acid now, which can be expelled out of the body. So due to that, we can say that this organism, they can survive even if there is a limited amount of oxygen, which is in the deep sea water or in a deep water. We have another adaptation now, help these divers to survive in a limited amount of oxygen, and this is they can tolerate tremendous atmospheric pressure at a great depth. That is, their lungs and lips are collapsible air spaces, minimized, and nitrogen absorption is limited. So tulisoma kule mwanzoni kabisa, while we are starting introducing the adaptations of oxygen uptake into divers, that while this human being, they are in the deep sea, their lungs, they tend to collapse. So the collapse of their lungs, tunasema kwamba tend to inhibit the accumulation of nitrogen within their body. So and here we have seen that they can tolerate tremendous atmospheric pressure at a great depth. They can't have that ability. Why they have that ability is due to collapse which is taking place within their lungs. So the collapse of the lungs, here you can see it tends to minimize now the accumulation of nitrogen absorption which is found within their body. So now the nitrogen will not be absorbed again. In the process now, it can cause the effect within the human body. So that is another feature or another adaptive mechanism that help this organism to survive in such limited amount of oxygen. We have another adaptive feature, and this is diving mammals slow their heart rate, stop their breath, and shunt blood flow from their extremities to the brain, heart, and the muscles when starting a dive. So these diving mammals, that is specifically we are talking about the human being, because human being is also mammal. Here we have seen that they tend to slow down their heart rate, and thereby by slowing their heart rate, now tend to stop their breathing and shunt blood flow from the extremities to the brain, heart, and the muscle. These things, it is involuntary action which is normally taking place within their body. So meaning that you cannot control this flow of blood. So now these divers, while now they are in the deep water, they tend to stop the healing flow of blood kwenye different kind of part of a body, but only the flow of blood, it will take place in the essential part which is help now them to survive. For instance, into the brain. So the blood will tend to flow into the brain, into the heart, and into the muscles now, which help now this organism to dive or to swim in a very good position. So that is adaptation which is normally taking place, and I repeat to say that these things, it is involuntary, so they cannot control by their own. So these things nasema kwamba ni adaptive features ambayo ina takes place within their body. So this organism or human being, they cannot control these reactions or these activities which is taking place within their body. And we have another adaptive feature, and this is the seals can hold their breath for about 2 hours. They rely on internal oxygen stored when they are down there. So the seals, when we say that the seals, those are the divers. So the divers which are normally taking place within the sea. So these seals, they can hold their breath about 2 hours. They rely on the internal oxygen stored when they are down there. So our divers tunasema kwamba wale for instance ambao wana dive in the deep water or in the deep sea water, so tunasema kwamba they can hold their breath, wana ule uwezo wa stop breathing about 2 hours. Ile stopping of breath about 2 hours tunasema kwamba inawasaidia hawa organism pale ambapo wanakuwa kwenye deep sea water watumie ile oksijeni ambayo ilishakuwa imechukuliwa kutoka nje kuingia ndani iweze kutumika effectively. So that is just adaptation which this organism normally they possess. And the last adaptation here which will help now this organism to survive in such area whereby there is limited amount of oxygen which is in the sea, in the river, or into the ocean. Now we can say that the myoglobin of the seals and dolphins is more concentrated than that of human. Almost 10 times. This gives them a chance of storing oxygen for a long time when they are under water. So tunasema kwamba these mammals which are normally have such tendency to survive in that deep sea water, tunasema kwamba they have more concentrated than that of human. That is the myoglobin which is found within the dolphin and the seals. Tunasema kwamba it is more concentrated with the myoglobin, and we have seen that the myoglobin, it is a form of hemoglobin which have high affinity of oxygen. So even if it will be a limited amount of oxygen, the myoglobin will tend to take such limited amount of oxygen. Ukicompare na kwenye human being they just have hemoglobin, but except to those who now they tend to just their work it is in the sea, now it can develop that myoglobin within their body, but almost 10 times give them chances of storing for a long time, oxygen for a long time when they are under water. So hapa wanaweza wakastore ile oxygen kwa muda mrefu sana wakiwa kule chini. Kwa sababu gani? Kwa sababu kule kwenye mwili wao kuna the presence of myoglobin, and this myoglobin it has high affinity of oxygen. So if there is a high affinity of oxygen, now what does a myoglobin do? Tunasema kwamba even if there is a limited amount of oxygen, it will take such limited amount of oxygen so that it can be used within the body and to provide the process which is the respiration in a good way. So my students, those are the adaptations which are used or which are involved in the process or those are the adaptations which now the divers they have in order to survive in such limited amount of oxygen. And by saying so, my students, this marks the end of our today's session, and thank you for your time and for following us, Educare TZ. Bye bye. Have a nice moment.